In the sprawling world of Las Fierbinți, where irony and tenderness coexist in every frame, Doctorul Dorel, Partea Y, stands as a meditation on illusion, dignity, and the fragile ways people find meaning in their lives. It's not merely a comedic episode, it's an anthropological slice of life, disguised in laughter. Beneath the rustic humor and playful absurdity lies a story about belonging, deception, and the fine line between being needed and being real. The story begins, as many Las Fierbinți tales do, with idle conversation and alcohol. The local bar hums with lazy debates about success and failure, about how, in the city, even fools can become someone if they wear the right clothes. The camera drifts from one face to another. Bobitsa's mischievous grin, Gianni's swagger, Celentano's sleepy gaze, before settling on Dorel, who, for once, is listening more than talking. The dialogue feels light, but pointed. When Dorel jokingly says, "Maybe I should become a doctor too," the room explodes in laughter. But behind that laughter hides the village's unspoken hierarchy, those who are respected and those who never will be. That moment becomes a seed of transformation. The next scene follows Dorel walking home through the dim, flickering streets. The tone shifts. The laughter fades, replaced by the melancholic hum of crickets and a soft accordion in the distance. The sequence is pure Las Fierbinți poetry, an unhurried, wordless revelation of longing. Dorel pauses by the river, staring at the reflection of the moon in the water. He whispers something we can barely hear, something about being useful. That single thought ignites the absurd but oddly noble plan that follows. The next morning, he reappears as Dr. Dorel. His new identity is built from scraps. An old lab coat borrowed from the school janitor, a stethoscope made from a garden hose, and a wooden sign painted with trembling letters. It's laughable, yes, but it's also oddly touching. The audience senses that Dorel is not mocking the medical profession. He's chasing a sense of worth he has never known. The scene of him adjusting his doctor's coat in front of the mirror, muttering Latin-sounding nonsense like diagnosticulum and prognosticalus, perfectly captures his tragicomic innocence. When the villagers start arriving for consultations, the show reaches its rhythmic, comedic core. A parade of ailments and eccentric personalities crosses Dorel's threshold. One man claims he can't sleep because his rooster judges him. Another says he's allergic to Mondays. And one old woman insists she's shrinking. Dorel, without hesitation, prescribes remedies that sound more like fables. Eat garlic while facing the sunrise, or apologize to your rooster. The brilliance of these scenes lies in their pacing. Each absurd consultation is framed not as mockery, but as collaboration. The villagers and Dorel together maintaining the illusion that something meaningful is happening. There's a quiet moral equilibrium here. Dorel's deception is obvious, yet no one feels cheated. They come not for cure, but for comfort. It's as though the village has collectively decided that his fake expertise is better than no attention at all. The episode becomes a study in the psychology of small communities, where the need to be heard outweighs the need for truth. Every patient leaves smiling not because they believe in Dorel's science, but because someone finally took their pain seriously. The most memorable scene comes halfway through the episode, when Dorel is called to visit Stella, the local gossip queen, who claims she's been cursed. The setting is pure visual metaphor. A dark, candlelit room filled with icons and garlic, superstition thick in the air. Dorel, sweating under the weight of expectation, hesitates for the first time. Baum. He's no longer performing for laughs, but for belief. When he finally declares, "It's not a curse, it's sadness," something shifts. Stella bursts into tears. For the first time in the episode, the laughter stops entirely. The absurd story gives way to a moment of piercing emotional clarity. What makes Las Fierbints so unique is precisely this ability to let comedy breathe until it transforms into melancholy. Doctorul Dorel, partea mai, doesn't ridicule rural ignorance. It humanizes it. Through Dorel's lie, the show reveals a universal truth. People crave care, even if it comes from an illusion. His role as a doctor becomes a metaphor for the artist, the storyteller, or even the priest, the one who fabricates meaning so that others can feel whole. As word spreads about his miraculous abilities, Dorel's confidence grows. The village begins to treat him with reverence. Bobica, usually the alpha clown, starts calling him Dom Doctor. Gianni stops mocking him and starts asking for advice about psychological fatigue. Even Celentano, the self-proclaimed philosopher of Fierbinți, delivers one of the episode's best lines. "If you cure my hangover, I'll call you a saint." These exchanges, laced with irony, illustrate how quickly power reshapes perception. Dorel, once the butt of every joke, becomes the center of the village's fragile faith system. Yet the show never lets the audience forget the danger lurking beneath the humor. The first real crisis hits when a child falls ill. The parents, desperate and frightened, rush to Dorel's house. The tone changes immediately. Camera close-ups, dim lighting, no music. The absurd premise suddenly feels unbearably real. Dorel's trembling hands, the panic in his eyes, the silent understanding that he's in over his head. These moments strip away the comedy entirely. He tries to remember fragments of advice he's overheard from television or radio. Keep the child cool. Give water. The audience holds its breath as he stumbles through improvisation. By some twist of luck, the child recovers. The relief is immense, but Dorel's face tells another story. Shame, fear, guilt. This scene elevates the episode from a farce to a fable. It exposes the paradox of Dorel's act. His lie may have saved a life, but it also confronts him with his own limits. From that moment on, the laughter fades. The show moves into introspective territory, letting silence and facial expressions carry the weight of reflection. Later that night, Dorel sits outside under a starry sky, nursing a glass of homemade wine. His monologue, soft, hesitant, almost like a confession, is one of the most poetic in the entire series. He wonders aloud why people believe him. "Maybe they just need someone to listen," he says, his voice cracking. The line lands with universal resonance. The show is no longer about a man pretending to be a doctor. It's about the loneliness of those who pretend to be strong for others. The nurse's eventual arrival adds a delicate layer of irony. She's rational, skeptical, and a little amused, yet she doesn't expose Dorel. Instead, she quietly observes the way people thank him, the way they leave his office lighter than they came. Her silent complicity becomes one of the episode's most moving gestures, a recognition that some lies heal, more than truth's wound. By the final act, Dorel's reputation peaks. The villagers hold a feast in his honor, toasting Dr. Dorel, savior of Fierbinți. The scene is both jubilant and heartbreaking. The camera pans over smiling faces, clinking glasses, roasted pork, and folk music, while Dorel sits slightly apart, his expression somewhere between pride and despair. He's surrounded by people yet profoundly alone. The viewer senses that he already knows this cannot last. The episode's final sequence unfolds in wordless beauty. Dorel wakes early, removes his white coat, and hangs it on a nail in his shed. He walks through the sleeping village, past the bar, the well, the crooked fences, all the places that once laughed at him. When he reaches the field at the edge of the village, the morning mist rises, and he disappears into it. The scene is framed like a folk painting. Warm light, muted colors, the faint sound of roosters. The symbolism is unmistakable. The doctor who never was, fading into myth. Doctorul Dorel, partea I, succeeds because it trusts its audience to feel beyond the laughter. The writing never forces emotion. It lets absurdity evolve naturally into empathy. The camera's lingering shots, the unpolished dialogue, and the earthy performances all contribute to an authenticity that few comedies achieve. It's as if the show is whispering that dignity, even when faked, still has value. On a thematic level, the episode explores several layers of meaning. There's the obvious commentary on ignorance and authority, how easily power can be manufactured with confidence. There's also a subtler exploration of faith and community, the way people collectively agree on illusions that hold their world together. But most poignantly, there's a personal story of a man who finds self-worth not in truth, but in usefulness. Dorel's tragedy is not that he lies, but that his only chance at respect requires pretending to be someone else. In its mixture of laughter and melancholy, Doctorul Dorel, partea I, mirrors the rhythm of rural life itself, repetitive, foolish, but deeply human. It captures the strange poetry of those who dream beyond their means, who heal not through knowledge, but through kindness. By the time the credits roll, the viewer is left not laughing, but reflecting on the absurd beauty of human pretension, on the power of belief, and on the quiet grace of those who, even in deception, act out of care. Ultimately, this episode is not about a doctor at all. It's about what it means to matter, even for a moment, in a world that rarely notices you. In Fierbinți, truth bends easily, but compassion remains the one constant law. Dorel, the fake doctor, may never save a life through science, but through his foolish sincerity, he heals something even deeper, the loneliness that infects every corner of human existence.